You could not live with your own failure. So where did that lead you? Back to Jose. Ladies and gentlemen, 15 years later, we have come full circle. Pep Guardiola is coaching football games 5-5-0 formation. Let me say that again. 5-5-0 formation. I never thought the day would come. I never thought the day would come. Pep Guardiola, with 20, 30 minutes left on the clock, is hooking his center forward off, bringing another defender on, and saying, go on then. Break us down. Football, man. Bloody hell, bro. Unfortunately for Pep, he has not gotten the win he wanted today because a last gasp Martinelli equalizer, chipping the oncoming Donnarumma inside his own box, has made sure that the spoils have been shared. The game is even. The game is tied up. Arsenal won. Man City won. There's a lot to talk about in this game. But first and foremost, I can't get over what I just saw from Pep and City. This is a side that since Pep has entered the country, Pep has entered the Premier League, they have effectively revolutionized football in this country and really dominated the direction that it's gone in. I mean, we've seen teams from the Premier League all the way down to grassroots football trying to play this beautiful possession-based style of play where everybody from the goalkeeper to the forward must be technical on the ball. 80% possession is the goal. Keep the ball, pass the ball. That is Pep Guardiola's football. Forget about City since he's entered the fray as a manager. But is this the final evolution? Is this what it's all come down to? The final evolution of Pep Guardiola as a football manager is coming full circle and ripping off the mask Scooby-Doo style to actually show that it's not Guardiola underneath the mask. It's Sam Allardyce. I can't believe it, bro. And that's even before Guardiola even took off Haaland and went 5-5-0. At one point, even with Haaland on the pitch, City were parked in their mid-block, absorbing pressure, and then just hitting teams long. I'm thinking to myself, wow, Guardiola of all managers is playing this style. Incredible, man. Incredible. Now, where do we begin with this game? I know where I want to start with this game. Erling Haaland. Erling Haaland, I owe Erling Haaland an apology. I do. Why? You guys are probably wondering, why do I owe Erling Haaland an apology? I do. At one point last season, I came to you guys on camera, microphone in hand, on big YouTube, and said, I think Alexander Isak might just be the best center forward in the league. I said that. It was after the Carabao Cup final, where he scored the winner against Liverpool to deliver Newcastle their first trophy in 60 years. He had an amazing season last year. As a center forward, he almost has everything in his locker. But I owe Haaland an apology because even despite all of that being true, Isak, you are brilliant. I was wrong. I was too reactionary. Erling Haaland is one of one, bro. Erling Haaland is one of one. Every head must bow, every tongue must conquer, right? That's the expression. I was wrong. Erling Haaland is still the standard. He is still the bar. He is still the level. There's levels that everyone is trying to reach. He is the level. This guy, Erling Haaland, right? It's actually astounding because he's broken record after record, season in, season out, scored goals and hit numbers that no one in this country has ever seen. And he's done it despite the entire system actually being counterproductive to the way he plays. He scores despite the way Manchester City play. He scores despite the way Guardiola sets up his team. He breaks records despite how he's profiled in this team. And now this season, we're starting to see Haaland actually be given the license to play his game. Like I said, he scored all these goals having limited touches, having to basically camp out in the box, feed off limited service. But I think in amongst all the pandemonium, the Erling insanity, we've actually forgotten that this is the most disgusting, fearsome, terrifying force of nature and open play transition that the game has to offer. This brother Erling Haaland, with green grass in front of him, space to run into, played into it, it's over before it even starts. It's over before it even starts. This is a freight train, a locomotive, the most destructive force of nature and transition that the game has to offer. The only one that comes close to him is Kylian Mbappe. But it's also in a different style because Mbappe is like lightning. He's a blur. We know he's the fastest player on the planet. And in transition, you send him through, he's gone. Haaland is a different sort of beast. The power, the footsteps. Like, he's not as much of a blur as Mbappe, and yet the amount of ground he just eats up when you give him that grass to run into is as a defender, it must be scary. Haaland scored a goal today, right? First and foremost, the most underrated part of that goal was his deft little flick into the feet of Reinders out of pressure. That's a side of Haaland's game that we maybe don't get to see as much. And it's a side of his game that's been criticized at times. How is he in terms of his overall game? That right there was brilliant center forward play. And it needs to be highlighted. But it's the most underrated part of the whole play. However, he gets it into Reinders. And at the point that he passes it into Reinders' feet, 5 players are either in line or in front of Erling Haaland. Saliba way in front of him. But there's 5 players for Erling Haaland to get past. About 5 seconds later, all 5 of those players are either out of sight, out of mind. The way this guy leaves guys in the dust in transition is a flat out joke. Just like that, one-on-one, and then the finish on top of it. The guy's never going to miss from there. Erling Haaland, his finishing one-on-one. Some people will sometimes come out and say it's a little inconsistent. But guys, what striker doesn't miss chances? The reality is that since he's entered the country, no one is scoring more at the rate that he is. He's a freak of nature. He's one of one. But in transition, I'm sorry, if Man City are to continue playing to Haaland's strengths this way, we thought we saw the best version of Erling Haaland when he scored 50 goals in all competitions. This version of Erling Haaland is infinitely scarier than that version. And that's saying something, because that version probably should have won a Ballon d'Or. But this version of Haaland, forget about it. We're talking about Gabriel and Saliba. Gabriel is a top center back. Over the last 3 years, maybe only Van Dijk has been better than him. Guys, he's literally like scrambling. He's sprinting, full sprint, trying to get back. And Haaland is leaving him in the dust. Haaland is leaving him gasping for air. He is a freight train. He is a locomotive. He is the most single-handed destructive force of nature that the game has on offer in open play, in transition. Forget about it. That ball gets played in behind. Haaland on the end of it. All you can do is pray. All you can do is pray. There's nothing you can do about it but pray. Unbelievable, bro. That's the first thing I need to speak about today. Erling Haaland is something else. Secondly, full credit for the second half from Arsenal, because they came out, they made 2 big substitutions in Eze and Saka, and they were the dominant force in that game, right? Obviously, City came in to defend the lead in the second half. Arsenal pushed, they pressed, they blew until the house came down, right? It's like, what is it? The Little Red Riding Hood and the what is it? The 3 Bears or whatever, right? And then what's the story? No, that's a different story. This is the one where it's like the wolf who's trying to blow down the house, right? And it's like brick. Yeah, that's the one, right? He huffed and he puffed until he blew that. That's the one, right? That's what Arsenal did in that second half. They went for it, and they could not break down this rigid, strong City back 4 or back 5 at one point. But they got the goal in the end. However, I'm sorry, right? I think Arsenal fans and Arsenal as a team and their players should be disappointed, because that game was there to be won. And the reality is, the second half, the last 45 minutes of that game should have been how the first 45 got played. Except Mikel Arteta went into this game not to lose. He went into this game not to lose. That was the objective, right? Obviously, they'd like to win, but the initiative, the goal is not to lose before actually going out to win. And I said it a few weeks ago when they went to Anfield. I have no problem with that mentality going away to Anfield. I saw Sir Alex go to Anfield for 20 years plus, going into that game with the mentality, protect what you have, and then if you can get something, get it. Mourinho goes to Anfield, same mentality. I get all that. I'm not getting onto Arsenal or Arteta whatsoever for going to Anfield and being pragmatic. But in this game, at home, to a Man City side that have shown vulnerabilities all season long, to go into that game with that lineup is, for me, unacceptable. Unacceptable. For where Arsenal are in their current moment, in their current window, for what their aspirations are for the end of the season, to approach this game at home to Man City with the mentality of not losing and then hoping to get something, I'm sorry, at this point with Arteta and Arsenal, that shouldn't be how you're entering these kinds of games anymore, man. That lineup right there, playing Marino in midfield with Rice and Zubimendi, playing Trossard on the left, leaving Eze on the bench, in this kind of game at home, I can't understand it. And I'm sorry, don't give me hindsight. Oh, if they had kept a clean sheet in the first half and then got a late winner, it would have been a managerial masterclass. You're leaving too much to margins. You're leaving too much to circumstances outside of your hands. Go into that game as the protagonist, as you should be, and then you dictate how the game is played, just like how the second half was played. That second half, Arsenal decided how everything went, and they got their goal at the end. Why couldn't you have done that in the first half? Well, I'll tell you why. Look at the lineup you played, man. Marino, Rice, and Zubimendi. What kind of midfield is that for a team that's looking to take the game to the other side? It's not. And Eze showed that when he came on. Bukayo Saka showed that when he came on. But at least Saka's injured, right? Or he's coming off an injury. So I get that. But I'm sorry, right? Trossard playing on the left instead of Eze is ridiculous. Marino playing centrally instead of Eze is ridiculous. Leaving Eze out of that game is ridiculous. I would love to know what the thought process was behind that from Arteta. I'd love to know why he made that decision, because it completely backfired. The first half, Arsenal went 30 minutes without even a shot. 0 XG in 30 minutes. City were comfortable. They were comfortable. And they had their counterattack. They got what they wanted from the game, and they sat back. City went into that game with the mentality not to lose, but get something if you could. But they're the road team. They're the team coming away from home. They're the team that aren't in the best form leading into this game. They're not the team with immense pressure on them to win the league this year. Obviously, they have hopes of doing it, but Arsenal at home, to go out with that lineup, it was baffling and extremely disappointing. The only person that showed any kind of attacking impetus that first half was Nani Madueke. That's it. And even him, he was getting double teamed by Foden and Nico O'Reilly. They were double teaming him every time he got on the ball. Tried finding some success here and there. Ultimately, a lot of it ended up in corners or whatever. But seriously, from someone who has no stock in this game, right? I'm just watching as a neutral. I'm just watching as a fan, right? The way Arsenal approached that first half from a lineup point of view was honestly so underwhelming. And it showed in the second half when once you brought on Saka and Eze, immediately when the second half started, look at the difference. And then you look at the goal Martinelli scores at the end. That pass from Eze, Marino will never play that pass once in his life. Seriously, you give Marino 100 times that position on the ball there. I don't even know if you'd attempt it, let alone play it with the mastery that Eze has. And that's why you bought Eze. That's why this is frustrating to me, right? You bought Eze to be the kind of player that unlocks games, unlocks these kinds of games. He's done it throughout his Premier League career, right? That's why you bought Eze. He's a maverick. What do I always say about Arsenal? They need mavericks. They need X factor. They need match-winning capability from players. Eze is one of the best they got in that regard. He's been one of the best in that regard since he entered the league. And you leave that guy on the bench for 45 minutes at home. Seriously, if I was an Arsenal fan today, I would be frustrated because that game was there to be won. That game was, it's obviously nice to grab a point from a position of losing, right? Last minute equalizer, the emotions are high. But I think when the emotions kind of fade away and you can look at this game objectively, that's a poor lineup to put out in this kind of game. As for City, right? Can I say this, by the way? Donnarumma. We're going to get this thing with Donnarumma now where every time he makes a save, it's like, oh, this is why they bought Donnarumma. Wow, such an imposing figure in goal. Donnarumma was good today, right? He was. He made the saves he had to. But I'm sorry, most of the saves Donnarumma made today were relatively straightforward. If Donnarumma lets in any of those goals, I would be looking at him kind of questionably. And like, it's not even because he's Donnarumma. They would have been poor shots to really concede. At no point did Arsenal really, for me, stretch Donnarumma into some unbelievable save that I wouldn't expect from any Premier League goalkeeper. But I think because so much of the narrative about Donnarumma is his shot stopping, every single save he makes is all of a sudden now massively inflated. And if anything, the goal that Martinelli scores, I would kind of look at him for it. Now, what I will say about Donnarumma is something that I criticized him a lot for, but the first two games against United and Arsenal has been amazing at, is his ability off corners, claiming crosses or punching them away. That was something that I thought for his height at PSG, he was often kind of targeted at. Honestly, it's not his strongest suit. But in his first two games for City, I think he's been really good in that aspect. But I'm sorry now, every time he makes a save, the commentators are going, this is why they bought Gianluigi Donnarumma. I think that's exaggerated, to be honest with you. I don't think this game in particular, he did anything that I wouldn't have expected from a good Premier League goalkeeper. But we move. Yeah, I don't know. This game from City's point of view is kind of hard to really look at. I mean, what I will say is, looking at City in this game in particular, is this the newest iteration, the newest evolution of Guardiola in the Premier League? Now, all jokes aside, right? We take away the Neil Warnock joke at the start, the Bordalis joke. City now being a more reactionary side, a team that does kind of play a little deeper, secede more of the ball, but look to really dominate both boxes. Is that the new Man City, or is this just a one-off game against Arteta because Arsenal kind of forced them into this style of play? What is it? Because if it is the former, I think that's pretty interesting, because in Donnarumma and Haaland, you do have two players that are amongst the best at dominating their box, right? Haaland is, for my money, the best striker in the world, and Donnarumma is, for my money, one of the best shot stoppers in the world. So if the plan is to kind of just dominate both of those and look to kind of also dominate your box from a defensive point of view as well too, before just hoping that transitions into Haaland can win you games, I mean, it's an interesting strategy. I'm still not sure if City are strong enough to continuously get results like this game in, game out. I did think at times they were a little lightweight in midfield, but it'll be interesting. Another guy as well too who's so good in this kind of play is Doku, who oftentimes was really left stranded on the left. At one point was almost the only forward up front when Haaland went off. I think Doku has definitely grown this season. He definitely looks like a better player than he did the last 2 seasons. But yeah, man, I mean, his battle with Timber was definitely interesting. I think at times Doku got the better of him. At times Timber also found success in that duel. But I think the second half was really almost actually a complete opposite of last season's game at the Etihad, where Arsenal basically spent the whole game defending because they were down a man, and City spent the whole game effectively just attacking before getting a last-minute equalizer. It was very similar to the second half today. But for me, the disappointing thing, I'm going to continue saying it, is Arsenal not playing like that for longer. For large parts of this game, it was really a slugfest, especially in the first half, right? City very comfortable in their block. Arsenal not really posing any threat outside of like long balls and set pieces. But the second half, I think you saw Arsenal really grow into a team that looked like they could grab goals. And ultimately, I think the Martinelli goal was deserved, because when you put that much pressure, you are more often than not going to get something at the end of it. And I think City did push their luck. And in fact, it was a little strange because City were so organized and so deep for so much of that game until the last 10 minutes, where they start to step forward a little bit. And the pass from Eze is brilliant, but I'm surprised City allowed Arsenal that much space in behind to kind of expose them, especially when City have been so poor in behind. Like, that for me was a little bit of a weird one. But ultimately, if I have to think about who's the happier manager from today, I think it's got to be Guardiola. Now, it's not something I ever would have said, like I said, because Guardiola playing this style is just so bizarre. But Guardiola came in with the idea not to lose, but to get something if he could. And he did. He got a draw. He almost got a win. I guess Arteta did as well too, but in the grand scheme of things, this for me was a must-win game for Arsenal. It was. When you're chasing Liverpool, who are perfect at this point, all the talk about Liverpool is unsustainable. Oh, they're struggling during games. Oh, they're relying on late winners. But at the end of the day, after 5 games, Liverpool have 5 wins, and now they're 5 points ahead of Arsenal. Next weekend feels huge. I never want to be too reactionary. Sometimes I'm a prisoner of the moment. I'm just an honest football fan, right? Sometimes I am a prisoner of a moment, but next week does feel huge. Because Arsenal go to Newcastle, Liverpool go to Crystal Palace. Those 2 games feel massive this early into the season. I know we're only 6 games in next week, but if Arsenal are to drop points and Liverpool are to get a big result at Selhurst Park, which is quickly turning into a fortress, all of a sudden, man, it really looks like even 6 games in, it'll be Liverpool who have kind of built enough breathing room this early into the season. These kinds of games, Arsenal are going into this year hungry, or they should be hungry, starving for that silverware. And when you're in these kinds of fights, especially against teams like Liverpool, every game feels must win, right? You're going into every game and you have to have the ambition to win that game, because we've seen these teams go 90 plus points. The margins to win the Premier League these days is so razor thin. So, in my opinion, for Arsenal to already be 5 points behind Liverpool, that feels a little damning. And next week feels potentially monumental for where this title race goes. Don't want to be reactionary, but I think it is that vital. Arsenal need to win next week. In fact, Arsenal now feel like they have to go pretty much perfect for the next few weeks. They got to start looking at Liverpool thinking, when are the results going to start dropping for them? And I don't think it had to be that way. Win today, you're still only 3 points behind. I think you're still in a decent place this early in the season. But now, with the way Liverpool have started, and Liverpool honestly probably haven't even gotten going yet, this feels like a really, really big result to drop from Arsenal. But let me know what you guys think down below. Oh, hold on. Before we go, actually, let's talk about Victor Gyökeres, because today was honestly a startling difference in performances from both Haaland and Gyökeres, right? Haaland obviously grabbing his goal. Honestly, I thought he played a really good game. Ran ragged Saliba and Gabriel. There was one moment as well, too, where he goes for a shot. It's easily saved by Raya. I think he should have gone one more pass over to Foden. But regardless, I think Haaland played a really good all-around game today. He was a constant threat whenever the ball went in behind, and he grabbed his goal exceptionally well. But Gyökeres, another game where he doesn't score, but more worrying for me, he almost has no impact on the game. And I've told you guys already my opinion on Gyökeres. I kind of view him as like a bully. He sniffs out weaknesses in center backs and looks to expose those weaknesses. But unfortunately for Gyökeres, it almost seems like the only weaknesses he's able to sniff are physical weaknesses. Are you faster than me? No, I'll sniff that out. Are you stronger than me? No, I'll sniff that out. But the minute he kind of comes up against guys that can match him in both those regards, it doesn't really become clear what he's offering from an attacking point of view. Gyökeres, I almost look at him, right? And I think to myself, what could he become in this league? I think the hope for Arsenal fans has to be Gyökeres can be a Diego Costa kind of player, because Costa was similarly a bully, right? He would look and sniff for physical mismatches and expose them. But one thing about Diego Costa as well, too, that was very, very underrated about him was how cute he was when it wasn't a physical matchup. Diego Costa was very, very cute with his movement, with the way he would kind of goad defenders into making one move and then exposing another, rolling off one player, flicking it. Like, he was a very cute player, Diego Costa, in terms of how he played. It was a very underrated aspect of his game. The problem with Gyökeres at the moment, though, is when he's not really getting that space in behind to run into or really being able to kind of like nudge guys off the shoulder, I feel like he's kind of nullified at the moment. Now, at the same time, he's a center forward, and center forwards need service, and Gyökeres is a finisher. Arsenal haven't given him much service against Liverpool or against Man City. But I think that's kind of the worrying bit. There will be games this season where Arsenal play against these deep blocks or teams that don't really give them a sniff. How can Gyökeres still find a way of impacting the game if he doesn't get that service? In that regard, I think he's going to kind of struggle, man, because from what I've seen already in 5 games, and it's only 5 games, but like I said, I'm learning about Gyökeres here. I don't really think he has much to his game outside of finishing and being a really big, aggressive guy, right? I think these are the kinds of games, honestly, where Arsenal probably miss Kai Havertz, which I never thought I would say because, no, I don't want to, that's harsh, right? Havertz has actually contributed a lot in these kinds of games, but the hope by buying Gyökeres was kind of to take pressure off of Havertz and to also have a plan B. Like, have somebody that, Havertz is not a lethal finisher. Have someone that is in that regard. But in games like this, where there aren't going to be too many chances for the center forward to bury, I think you need more from your 9. And I think Kai Havertz offers more in terms of his overall game than Gyökeres does. So, like I said, I'm learning game in, game out, but it's becoming very, very clear to me that these kinds of games, we shouldn't really expect too much from him. Because if he's not getting that ball kind of fed to him, he's not really going to give you much else. But that's all I really got to say on this game. Saka and Eze, I think, completely changed it for Arsenal. The underwhelming thing is they could have done it 45 minutes earlier. But ultimately, I think a draw is a fair result. City defended really, really strongly until the end. Arsenal pushed and pushed. And I think at the end of the day, deserved at least a point from this game. And I think it's a fair result on surface of the whole 90 minutes. So neither guy can be too upset. Neither guy can, I think, be too over the moon. But ultimately, I think the biggest winners from this entire weekend, yet again, are Liverpool Football Club. So guys, let me know down in the comment section below, what did you make of this game? What did you make of the tactical setup from Arteta? And what did you think of Pep Guardiola cosplaying as Tony Pulis, cosplaying as Roy Hodgson, cosplaying as Neil Warnock? Unbelievable. The Premier League, every single weekend, we get something we don't expect. See you guys very, very soon. Like, share, subscribe. We're on a road to 100,000 subscribers. We can only do it with your guys' help. And I'll see you guys very, very soon. Peace.